All right, so a couple things. So this is the metrics model working group, and right after this, we have the metrics group, of course, in 2025. It has crossed my mind again to try to combine these meetings. They were combined for a while. We separated them out. Anyway, it's on my mind. My thoughts for 2025, particularly around the metrics and the metrics models, is to continue to clean up what we have already published and kind of, attend to the artifacts that we have. And we've been doing this. We did it in the last metric model meeting, and we've been doing it in the metrics meeting as well. Just kind of like really focusing on what we already have published and making sure that what we have published is like really nicely available to people as they try to get access to our artifacts. Because it was really messy for a long time. And we've made good progress in 2024, and I think we should continue to do this in 2025. So that's kind of my hope in these meetings, and that's why I was suggesting, that's why it's been on my mind to potentially combine these, that we can just spend time in each of the meetings, whether we're cleaning up models or cleaning up metrics, whatever it might be, to just have these working sessions that do this. I don't know what people's thoughts are on this.
Okay, like it's going to be like 2 hours. We continue from this time, then we enter the other time. That means we can
I would
achieve
like to
more.
get it down to an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, that we either use this hour or the next hour as the time where we attend to our metric models that are published, or metrics that are published.
For my thoughts, we might not like achieve more. This is me, because I used to see this one as like where we discuss and then agree on things we need to do, whether we're moving these metrics or we're not moving. Then for the second one, I see it as where we have time to actually work on a matrix. So that's where I see them, and I join both. So these are my thoughts. So I don't know what others are thinking about that. So like combining, for me, kind of tricky, because 1 hour cannot give us this time thinking about matrix, this, and then discussing it separately before working on having that time to actually work on the other one. My thoughts still.
Yeah. What are other people's thoughts?
I've missed the past few meetings, so I guess I just don't really have a good sense for how much time we need. So getting at Peculiar's point, like I like the idea of combining them, but does an hour give us enough time to do both? And I just don't know the answer to that. Like I said, I think I've missed the last few of these meetings.
The last few meetings done, at least like kind of the last maybe quarter in 2024. You know how we did the updates to the template for the metrics? There was like follow-up work that needed to be done to continue to clean up that new templating work. And so we were spending time just in the meeting identifying what things needed to be cleaned up. And if you take a look at the metric model minutes for today, we also had spent time going through the models themselves, trying to identify like problems that were in the models themselves. And I think what we spent most of the time last time was identifying metrics that didn't exist. We're thinking about alternative metrics that could take the place of metrics that don't exist. And so it's been kind of just mechanistic in terms of cleaning up the artifacts that we have in both cases, with very little discussion about new metric models or new metrics.
And how much of that cleanup is left to do? Like, are we still working on some of that?
Yep. Yeah, we're still working on it. Yeah. So we had left, and because we had done a lot of the like the identification of stuff towards the end of last year. It didn't get done. Like we identified what needs to be done, but the PRs to solve those problems have not been done. And I think we just need to kind of spend time like doing that kind of work right now.
So I wonder if we keep both meetings until we finish the cleanup or get the cleanup kind of to a point where that's not what we're focused on. And then maybe we'll be in a better position to reassess whether we can do everything we need to do in an hour.
Okay. All right. Well,
I
let's.
don't know if other people agree with that. I feel like I don't always attend these meetings, so I feel like my voice is not the most important one here.
I also only pop in every now and then, and to me, combining them makes sense. From what I observe, the group of people involved is pretty similar between the meetings. So reducing the number of meetings, if we still have enough time for all the work. So I'm fine with combining.
Okay.
I'm curious what Kevin thinks. Sorry to put Kevin on the spot while he's on mute.
Oh, that's all right. I think we were having this conversation a few months back, and I was in favor of combining them. I do know that we did get pushback on that though. So, and I'm not sure. I don't remember who we got pushback from. But there were people that were in favor of not doing that. My vote was to put them together. I'll always fewer meetings and kind of more coordination around metrics and models is great. So.
Okay. Well, why don't we? Okay, so it seems like there's like trying to read the conversation, like general, like maybe it's an okay thing to do. Let's see how the work kind of plays out. And I do know that also in 2024 we had kind of focused the meetings on being working meetings where we just spend time cleaning up the metrics. I honestly don't know when the last time we got a new model submitted or a new metric submitted. I think Elizabeth maybe did the last metric that was related to, I don't remember.
Well, I think with the go ahead, sorry.
I drafted one to share today.
Okay.
I was just going to say with the move to the guides we've been creating, having more focus on creating those guides over models, and also with some of the talk about what metrics do we want to maintain. I don't think we really have a great process outlined for what we're going to do if we create a new metric, or if someone wants to create a model, what are we going to do with it? So I think those are some discussions that we need to have going forward if we're going to continue our focus on making the guides, which I do think we should do. And additionally, if we're going to focus on maintaining a smaller set of simplified metrics, which I also think we should do. But I think we do need to have some kind of conversations about what new metrics look like and how we come up with new metrics, and maybe even a discussion of what are we actually doing with the models? Are we going to maintain them? Is it going to be a separate thing? Is it do we want to continue to do the model work, or do we just want to focus on the practice guides?
Yeah, I think with respect to the models, I think the strongest argument that we've had for keeping them is they're tied to CHAOSS. So CHAOSS uses the metric models, and having something to point back to in CHAOSS was. I think, does anybody remember that conversation?
Yeah, I remember they're very closely connected to CHAOSS. They emerged around the same time, and I think they kind of emerged from that group. So yeah, that is the way it is.
Okay. Okay, well, why don't we, Georg has to drop off at the bottom of the hour. We don't have to solve this now. I just want to continue to put this out there. Georg, maybe because you have to drop at the bottom of the hour, you could talk about what you just put in the chat.
Yeah, happy to. So this is the what we've been talking about and sharing before. Thank you for sharing the screen.
Yep.
The metric model that we were working on at Bitergia and that we've validated with ING Bank. And so I'd offered to write the metric model, and in the past we've been open to that idea, so I put pen to paper, wrote this out. So here it is, et voila.
Could you talk about it just a little bit?
Yeah, the problem that they wanted to solve is we have been inventorying what our open source dependencies are, what libraries we have. We have the SBOMs, but where do we need to pay attention to? What do we need to focus on? And how do we assess this in a scalable, automated way? So really choosing metrics that can be calculated automatically, where you don't need someone to look at the data first to assign affiliations or to do manual checks, because some metrics that we have are not automated very easily. So the selection of metrics in here are really meant for automating and scaling the analysis, so that when someone looks at all of the dependencies as imported from an SBOM, where do they need to pay attention? And the way of looking at maintenance health, this is the name I came up with. We can come up with a different name. Initially, we just called it risk, very generic, so not very precise. Maintenance health is, does the community have the people? Does it do the things? Is it responding to issues and pull requests? And is there activity that shows that there is active maintenance happening? Yeah, and there are 3 metrics in here that would need to be defined. And if we want to move forward with this, I can define them as well.
No, I that was me highlighting. I just wanted to make sure I could track them.
Yeah.
A couple comments is our metric models are, I don't know how many metrics you have in here. 4, 7, 8, 9, something like that.
Yeah.
Seems a little high for a model. Maybe I could be wrong.
No, I tend to agree. I think we had gone back and forth, and we did discuss that being like I don't know, 5 kind of being a soft limit. 3 to 5 kind of being the range.
Would there be a chance to remove some of them? I mean, our metrics models, I don't think will ever be perfect in terms of defining what we're trying to take a look at. But is there a core set here that maybe we could move forward with?
Well, and in the one case, actually, the responsiveness, that's actually the same metric, time to close, but they're measuring it in 2 different ways.
Oh, I see.
I don't know if any, looks like also maybe the contributors and active contributors are also the same thing. So I wonder if maybe to avoid confusion, I wonder if we just want to list the metric once, and then in the description and objectives, maybe talk about how it covers both issues and change requests.
Yeah, and for on that note, Don, that's a good observation. The backlog management index and the review efficiency index are also the identical metric, but one looks at issues, the other at pull requests.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I feel like this isn't as many metrics as it looks like it is.
I see that now. I mean, this is a repeat here.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other interesting thing about this that I haven't seen in a model before is I don't know if I document this in here, we combine the metric into a single score. Oh yeah, I write about that in metric specific insights drawn from the metrics model section, how this is used, and in the screenshot you can see that each component gets a single score. And so while there are several metrics underneath the hood, this model only presents one score per dependency, unless you want to drill down.
So I kind of feel like this is four models that are put together to provide insight to a community, right? So it has a bunch of metrics because these metrics kind of are four different kind of models of community activity in here. So I'm wondering if I'm kind of wondering if the project maintenance health indicator, if this does work better as a guide of some sort, pointing to kind of four different models, right? The license risk is one model, project community as contributors is one model, project is responsive is one model, and so on.
Georg, did you have a comment on that?
I'm reflecting on whether this is a collection of models combined into one, or to me this goes back to our everlasting discussion. What is a metric? How granular is a metric, and also how granular is a model?
All right, I'm out. We've come full circle around the little lazy river. It's time to stop in the bar.
Yeah.
And the only reason I say anything is because of the conversations we've had about simplifying our metrics and focusing on these user guides. Right? If the focus is going to be on a user guide, what would be what would this look like as a user guide?
So I haven't thought about how to turn this into a user guide yet. Does anyone else see the potential for this to be a user guide?
Practitioner guide, is that what you're?
I mean, Don's written most of them, but I would think, yes, you would just be translating what it says in there to practices, right? So you'd be wanting to do things that improve those numbers. That would be the practitioner guide, right, Don?
Yeah, but so all right. So this is something that's super confusing, but I really want to reserve the practitioner guides for new things. So this would be more of an expert guide, which we haven't figured out what that looks like yet, because the practitioner guides are 3 to 4 metrics, and that's it. Because they're designed to get people started, and not designed to get them all the way there. This is designed to kind of get them all the way there. I think the difference between the metrics models and the guides is that the models really are just, here's this collection of things that you should measure in order to understand a topic. Whereas the practitioner guide and the other guides are likely to be the same, there's like a big section on what to do with this data. So what if responsiveness isn't great? What do you do? What if they're not managing the backlog? What next? So the guides are designed to go that step further, which I think is important. I think that's what people actually need. And I think this is why our metrics models have not been particularly successful, is people just don't know what to do with them. The only success I think we've had with the models is really what CHAOSS has done with them, because they've implemented them.
Right.
So like
Agreed.
with this one, like Grimoire Lab is implementing this model, which is a great which is a great start. Like but I don't think that necessarily gets people all the way.
So I'm happy to take this in the direction of writing an expert guide or writing this as a model. I have time to spend on this, and if the consensus is no, this is not appropriate for CHAOSS, that's fine too. But if we do find a spot, I'm happy to work on it. So
I think it's definitely appropriate. I still kind of, I have questions about the artifacts that we're wanting to create and what we want those artifacts to look like. I think there's still some confusion around that, and maybe some questions we haven't answered yet. So, but I think it's definitely appropriate. I think it's great. But I do kind of think that it's a model that has 4 other models in it. That's kind of that's how I look at it. So
yeah, and I structured it in that way to break it down a little bit and provide more guidance on why these metrics or these small groups of metrics are shining lights on different aspects that are important to maintenance.
So personally, I'd rather, I kind of want to avoid like creating a model with respective metrics that also don't exist. That seems like a web of work that historically we don't get done in these groups. Not saying you can't do it, Georg, but just kind of watching when a whole bunch of things need to be created that are connected to each other. I've become pretty hesitant on that. So to me, this does look like it, I think, has the potential to be an expert guide in Don's case. And the question would be, like, out of here, I know Don is focusing on, like, say 3, maybe 4 metrics in some of the practitioner guides. Like, what would be the 4 metrics here that could be focused on?
But I think if it's an expert guide, we don't need to focus on 4 metrics. So this is the limitation of the practitioner guide, is that those are
6.
just designed to get people started. So I think the expert guides can have a lot more metrics and a lot more information.
Cool.
I'll just be honest, we haven't written one yet, so we don't know what it's going to look like. So I think that the practitioner guides evolved quite a bit as I was writing the first couple. Because I kind of started with this is what I think, and then it evolved as we started writing them. So I'm happy to work with Georg to make this our first expert guide, and we can figure out together what this is going to look like.
Exciting proposition.
Yeah, because we need to do this with something, and if you've got some time to write it, I think we could work on it together and figure out what an expert guide looks like, and then maybe we can create some kind of loose template. But I think the expert guides, because they're going to be a lot more detailed and the topics are going to be more varied, I think it might be hard to create a template, but we can create at least some guidelines for creating expert guides, what they should look like. Maybe there are some common things that we can template out.
Sounds good.
Cool.
I gotta go to my next meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks, Georg.
Thanks, Georg. All right. Okay, so is everybody okay with Don's proposal of maybe trying to think about this as an expert guide?
I think that's a good idea. It gives us a chance to explore the space. Go ahead, Peculiar.
Well, I'm just saying that's a good idea.
Okay. All right, cool. Elizabeth gave a thumbs up. Kevin, does that kind of resonate with where you're at?
yeah, I think I kind of already gave my opinion on that.
Yeah, just making sure. Just
yeah.
do it. It's like the final round of voting.
No, I like it. Sounds great. I'm super excited to see what an expert guide looks like.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, and I'm looking at these two, and based on how you've thought about practitioner guides, it seems like a fair number of these could have discussions about what to do when you're seeing things kind of not go your way on these metrics. Some of them might be a little trickier, like that one. Like if you don't see your licenses declared, I mean, I guess you could look for alternatives.
Yeah, and this is yeah, that's a good question. And this one will be different. Like the practitioner guides are really designed for people who are working within open source projects.
Mhm.
And this one is not necessarily people working within the open source projects. It's people working, to understand the projects that they're consuming.
Yeah, it seems like a supply chain one.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we'll have to write the guide with that in mind. So less about, how to get more contributors and more like, yeah, I don't know what this will look like, but it'll be very different, a very different feel, I think, because of the audience is going to be different.
Okay, great. Very cool. Thank you. Okay, so maybe we can make a note of that. Let's see. Oops. What's the name of it?
Hope you all don't mind, but I just added all the names to the minutes.
I thought maybe Georg was doing that, and I'm like, well,
Oh.
dedication. He's already gone to his other meeting, and he really wants to make sure that he's right.
That's commitment right there.
No, it was me because we were so distracted at the beginning of the meeting. There's like no question. We're trying to figure out a passcode. Nobody put their name in the doc. It was chaos at the beginning of the meeting. It was mayhem.
With one S. All right, so kind of where we left off last year, maybe 2024, is we had gone through the metrics models that we have to specifically identify which of the models have no unlinked metrics or are missing links to metrics. And if they are missing links to metrics, is there a solution to that missing metric? Meaning, is there an alternative, or is there just at this moment no alternative? If you recall, when we were first developing metrics models, the intention was to kind of take any model, even if none of the metrics were developed, with the intention that we would develop the metrics in due time that were associated with that model. Kind of goes back to an earlier comment I made that never really seemed to come to fruition, that we would have a model come in with no developed metrics, and then those metrics would be developed in time to support that model. So my suggestion, or at least this what we were talking about last time, was the potential to just simply remove those metrics from the particular metric models and just move on with what we have, or make changes, as in like this as a proposed change to the model. Does anybody remember that conversation? I think I got that right from last time. Kevin, I think you were there for sure on that one.
Yeah, I don't know if I was. This meeting occurs during the class I teach, so I don't often. If I come in, I usually come in late and
Okay.
Often miss these ones.
All right. Well, maybe you weren't there.
I do kind of remember that conversation.
Okay. Do people have thoughts on, just simply removing metrics? So for example, if I click on project awareness, like right now, we do not have these metrics. They don't exist. The suggestion is just to issue a PR to remove them from this model. What do y'all think? If you weren't here, that's great. This is just part of that cleanup. Like, I just think we have too many loose ends on our metric models and metrics.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I'm torn on this one because well, no, maybe not. We have a popularity metric, which looks more like a metric model, which has some of this stuff. But this is one of those topics that people struggle with. And I feel like having a laundry list of things that they can easily measure, like we don't necessarily, do we need a metric for stars and likes and thumbs up? You can just kind of look and get that. You know what I mean? But it's not a metric. So I'm kind of torn. Like with our model, I think what you're saying makes absolute sense. Just like delete them. But I also feel like that context is useful and I don't know what to do with it.
That's fair. Right, it does seem silly to write a whole metric on stars. Like, just
Yes, agreed. Like we're not going to write a metric on stars, but it is
Yeah.
something, it's something you can look at and it is an indicator of awareness. I wonder if what we do is something more like what we've done in the practitioner guide, which is additional things that you might want to think about or additional metrics you might consider or
additional information you could gather. Like, don't call it
yeah,
a metric.
yeah.
I was actually thinking something very similar, just like an additional considerations headline and drop these three things in and leave it at that. I honestly,
Yeah.
I don't know that how would we even measure installations? Is that even possible? Is anyone capturing that?
Not in most cases, but some companies can measure that kind of stuff if they have sort of the right type of project and the right telemetry. It's really rare to be able to have that data for an open source project, but some do. Like it's amazing what Sonotype has about their about some of the data that I think they buy or they have based on their product or something.
Yeah, so maybe just a note that says other considerations and drop those things in.
Yeah.
And while we're at it, we could probably come up with like 20 more other considerations. We should add those too.
Just
I'm
overwhelm
being
people
facetious
with-
there. I'm sorry.
I know. Just-
Just to make Matt's head explode.
I'm always trying to like get rid of things. What do y'all think about a section called additional considerations? I don't want to call them metrics because we have a very explicit thing that is a metric.
I don't think we want to bullet point them either. I would just make it a comma separated list where it's just, these are other things you might look at and it's a comma separated list. And so that it's not bullet pointed the same way that we have metrics bullet pointed. It'll add some kind of separation in that way as well.
You could almost
Can we
leave
add
it
them in
the
the description? Oh,
what I was gonna say was we can like right below the bullets, we could just leave it in the metrics and the metrics model section, but have additional considerations : and have it just be a sentence.
Okay.
Which would keep it with the metrics, because I think these are kind of metrics, but they're not. And just have it, yeah. I wouldn't even have it be a heading. I would just say additional considerations, comma separated list as the last sentence in that metrics section and not bulleted.
Okay. Okay. I'm trying to like see. Okay. Almost like this. Like just a sentence like that. I mean, just like a bold sentence or not even bold?
I wouldn't even make it, I wouldn't even make it bold. I would just have it just be a sentence.
Just a text sentence.
Yeah.
Come on. Okay. Good. So, okay, so would this, do you think this could be applicable for all? Because here's another example. This is for, I'm sorry, this is for that one.
I think so. I would simplify it maybe.
Okay,
I mean, like you don't need the sub bullets.
no. Okay, I think it would still work in this case. Just a sentence, additional considerations. Right. In that particular one that I was showing, we had made a few suggestions that maybe there are alternatives for some of those metrics that aren't linked. So code commit linked with change request. This doesn't have a metric that is developed right now, but the suggestion in the last meeting was that perhaps we could just point them to change request commits, making that change and telling, and just, that's it. I mean, we don't really provide much detail. We just say this is a metric that could do what you need.
Is the is that a filter or
On
in,
this
in
one
a
particular-
change request commit? I would think it would be, right? Iteration of comments. So comments are
this one commits.
a number of times the same file is modified. Or I'm sorry, iteration of commits. Which one is this? This is change request commits. Oh, okay, gotcha. So it wouldn't be change request commits. I think we would just connect it to the change request metric.
Okay.
Because change request commits is a commit is part of a change request. But I think if we just point it to the change request metric itself, I think that covers it.
Oops. That one.
Yep, that one.
Let's take a look. Do you see what you're looking for? I don't.
So it has review is in there. But it doesn't mention comments associated with change requests at all. Maybe that's an edit for change requests because change requests have reviews and comments in them, I believe. Is that true across the board, Sean? Is that a
Yeah, I mean, on a change request, the review really ends up being stored as a form of commentary. So the text is stored as a comment. However, the review is stored as that specific type of object. So
but all of those things are associated with a change request. So
That's right.
a review
Yes.
and a comment and a commit are all part of a change request.
Yes, because you can make comments without performing a review.
So I would say maybe we just need to slightly edit that change request to reflect that a change request includes a review, a comment, and a commit, and then yeah, you just point for that model that we were looking at. You just pointed at change request, and the question there was, is there a comment? Was it? What was the question? The question was, is there a comment linked to the change request, right?
Yeah, it would be one or more comments, linked to it.
Okay, so why don't, in the minute we have here, so what I'm going to propose is that as a first step, anything in any metric model that is not linked at the moment, I'll just issue, it's only 5 metric models at this point. Whatever. Anyway, that I take all of the unlinked metrics out and put them in that additional, whatever, additional stuff line, additional considerations line. So even in this case, I would pull out what we were just talking about. I would pull out code commit with change request. I just put it into additional comments for now, just to get it out of that main list. And then step 2 would be to go back to that additional considerations list and see if there are any metrics like what we're talking about here that could be upgraded in such a way that we could put them back in the list as a linked metric. Does that make sense?
It's a lot to contain in my head, but I think so.
It's just going through anything that doesn't have a linked metric.
Yeah.
I just pull it out at this point and put it under additional considerations. We don't try to figure out if there's an alternative or not. I just pull it out. It's currently not linked, so I just get it out of that main list.
I think that would make the metric models easier to understand. It must be confusing to a new person to see a metric that doesn't exist listed.
Right, so then it would just be under additional considerations. And then in step 2, we can go look at those additional considerations lists and see if there's any potential changes in there, kind of the conversation that we were currently having, and then subsequent changes that we would need to make to a metric.
I think that makes sense.
Would people be okay with that?
Makes sense to me.
Okay. Just like simple. I'm afraid if we have too many steps involved, we'll get nothing done. So like I'll just take the first step.
Yeah, exactly.
Get that done, and then we can work on any alternatives to the metrics once that first step is done. All right, we're over time. I guess I'll see y'all in 8 minutes. And we can continue this conversation. So we'll talk to you then.
All right.
All right, bye.